Hi, this is Ian Wright, and this is part 2 of my self-care as you get older. And this is just a little introduction to a massive subject, which is to do with optimal kind of nutrition as you get older. And as we get older, our nutritional needs slightly change because we don't need so much energy. There's less energy output in general. I mean, nowadays, everyone's more and more active, which is fabulous. But in general, our energy needs are less. So actually, our energy intake should be slightly less naturally anyway. And as we get older, our appetites tend to go down a little bit. But counterbalancing that, we tend to have poorer absorbance of the nutrients from our intestines. We tend to absorb less. So we need to take that into account, I think. And also things like taste and smell can go down. So our natural kind of connection with food can just become a little bit less, which can have some sort of effects. But there are key areas when we're looking at nutrition that I think are important as we get older. There are key components like inflammation. Now, there's an increased tendency generally to inflammatory issues as we get slightly older from the joints, arthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, any kind of inflammatory conditions affecting the muscles, joints, ligaments, etc., etc. But also, inflammation is increasingly being recognized as a kind of hidden factor in a lot of other major organic conditions like cardiovascular, heart stuff, brain stuff in terms of cognitive decline, etc., etc. So inflammation is a key component, and I think in the future actually we'll be very much focused on the process of inflammation in nutrition. And I have actually done a podcast on that previously about anti-inflammatory foods, which I suggest you look at for more detail in that. There are other kind of general factors. I'll talk about specifics in a minute, but there are other general needs, for example, because of absorption and because of, for example, calcium needs. Bone density tends in everybody to decline as we get older. That's a normal factor. But if it becomes too much, you get osteopenia and osteoporosis, which can cause problems, tendency to fractures, weakening of the musculoskeletal system. And to counterbalance that naturally with nutrition, number one, we need more vitamin D. We tend to be in the sun less as we get older, as a natural kind of course, because we're not doing outside activities so much. And, it's sometimes very hard to get hold of the sun in the winter. So normally it's a good idea to supplement vitamin D about 10 micrograms a day, ideally in a kind of liquid form, because it seems to be easier absorbed, I think. But actually, vitamin D would be something that I think is important to supplement as we get older. Calcium itself is important, sometimes harder to digest, but actually if you can take in these things through natural foods, green leafy veg, etc., it's very helpful. There are certain vitamins that seem to become more important as we get older. The whole B side of the vitamins, especially B12, which is important in blood, because some of our stomach enzymes aren't functioning so well, and our stomach acid is less. So all the B vitamins, which are quite important in terms of, amongst other things, helping keeping our nervous systems kind of in balance and not so we don't feel so kind of distressed. Other vitamins which are very important and you may or may not want to supplement are vitamin E, vitamin C, which have important immune protective responses in the body. Vitamin E is very good for protecting the heart and the brain as well, I think. So it's probably a good idea to get the right kind of dosage, not too much. Vitamin E as a supplement is probably good. Vitamin C. Zinc is important, but often I think vitamin C and zinc possibly should be taken at different times of the day because I think they affect each other's absorption. Generally, less protein. We're not building like when we're young, building muscle so much. We're actually complex carbohydrates in terms of energy maintenance are quite good. We need a lot of fiber as we get older to maintain gut function, to kind of clean out the gut, help keep our bowels functioning as well as we can, which comes from these natural fibers, of course, come best from fruit and vegetables. Fruit and vegetables is probably one of the key components, I think, of eating as you get older. Slightly less protein, slightly increased and wider amounts. We tend to, as we get older, eat less different types of foods. We're less kind of wanting to try new things, and we are favourites. That's a normal thing. But actually, eating a wide variety of foods actually helps because it gives us a different mineral, vitamin, and some of these cofactors and enzyme base, which is good for our overall health. And so wider diets are kind of better. So try and keep the diet as wide as you can, I think. Keep those natural fibers high, which is important. If you're going to think supplementing, one of the ones that you would go for is omega-369 oils, so fish oils. I mean, these days, obviously, there's a lot of toxicity in food. So actually, naturally, the best thing to do is eat fish. But actually, fish, can have heavy metals and pesticides in terms of poisoning in them. So it's best to always eat small fish. Big fish tend to accumulate more toxins, but actually fish is the best way. If not, supplement with krill oils, which is a very tiny krill, which whales eat because they're so tiny they shouldn't have such accumulations. But some sort of fish oil or natural flaxseed oils, etc., can do the job. Not quite as well, but pretty good. Vitamin E is a very good oil as well, as I've talked about earlier. Olive oil is very good. All these things are very important in terms of our heart function, maintaining our heart function, cardiovascular function, maintaining our gut function, keeping our joints free and functioning as well as we can. So what can we do to help kind of maintain that absorption as much as we can? Well, the other side of it is our gut bacteria, which, unfortunately we use more and more of these anti-inflammatory cleaning products, which aren't great for our gut flora really very well. So our natural gut biota, which is the kind of balanced ecology of your gut, which actually has a hugely important immune and digestive role in the body, and it's really being researched a lot now, needs to naturally be enhanced. So one of the best things, of course, is taking a prebiotic. A probiotic can be quite supportive and helpful to the gut, something that's kind of broad-based and not just one sort of thread. That can be helpful for our general digestive process, because digesting is kind of really important. So if we are kind of slightly not absorbing correctly, we can be slightly malnutrition. That can have an effect on our immune systems very strongly. Poor wound healing, more of an inflammatory change in the system. So we're trying to keep and maintain our nutrition. Of course, on the other side, there can be a tendency in some people to eating too much and eating too much sugar and eating too much rubbish. When we come to inflammatory foods, foods which actually increase inflammation, well, there's processed foods, there's uncomplex carbohydrates, refined carbohydrates, white bread, cakes, etc., sugar-based products. Sugar's very inflammatory. It really irritates the liver. Alcohol, processed meat, some of these vegetable oils are very bad in terms of inflammatory. So we need to bring back this inflammatory thing by taking protective foods like fruits, which have lots of protective enzymes and antioxidants. Anti-inflammatory foods also olive oil, green leafy veg, nuts, blueberries, eating good fats, the olive oils. All this is very important, of course, to teeth, and teeth come under pressure when we get older because of demineralization of the bone, but also medication can demineralize the teeth to some degree. So actually, that's the vitamin D, the calcium. It's very important, but try not to take so many acidic foods. Fruit juices, things like that aren't great for the teeth. So take fruits in a natural way, but actually make sure you wash your teeth, for example, after eating an apple. Again, we've talked about oily fish and fatty acids, very important for eye health, cognitive function, central nervous system function. So overall, it's quite an obvious thing, but I think it's important to recognize the breadth of our diets. To also, another part of it is actually to do with hydration. We all tend to be slightly dehydrated. And when you get old, you get prone to kidney infections. Now, kidney infections can be incredibly debilitating as you get older. It can really affect your mood, very, very strongly as you get older. And hydration is a very important part of that, and inflammatory predisposition, taking inflammatory foods. So maintain hydration, always have a bottle of water around, sip at it throughout the day just to keep that fluidity going in the system. And actually what we're wanting to do is keep a degree of fluidity within our nutrition. And if we do all these things, which we've kind of covered here, we can hopefully maintain the maximum amount of, it's like naturally oiling the joints and actually keeping the arteries as well as they can be, which will help with cognitive function, heart function, etc., etc. So it's an overall kind of picture, and this is a huge subject, and I've just given a very brief introduction off the top of my head here, but I've done a series of podcasts on various nutritional things, and they're introductions, because it's not my area of expertise. It's just an area, of course, I work with all the time. But anyway, I hope this serves you well. I wish you well.